It's the two-party competition, which is what's turning people off. There's a reason why only 50% of the people vote, because they don't feel that the two-party system is working for them.
Charlie Baker, quick comment.
I'm just going to say a couple things. First of all, having made the personal decision to spend the last 15 months of my life walking away from my job at Harvard Pilgrim to jump into this race, I admire and support anybody who decides to do this. And
even if
all the way to the end. And the only thing I would say about Tim is he's forgetting about the fact that the labor unions in Massachusetts, the public employee unions, are spending an enormous amount of money to defeat me because they know that life will be different on Beacon Hill and a Baker administration. And the one other thing I would say, Charlie, Jill mentioned the healthcare costs were going up. State spending's going up, unemployment's going up, taxes are going up, energy costs are going up. The only stuff that's going down is jobs and local aid.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I welcome all of the candidates to the race. I think it's not broken politics, it's better politics. If people participate, that's how it works, that's how it's meant to work. And I have not, I hope, in the course of this candidacy and this campaign, disparaged or belittled the participation of any of the competitors for this job. The other thing I would say, though, is that you know, when Charlie talks about the public employee unions, I want to be clear. I'm the one who's had to stand with them and work with them to get concessions from their in their labor union contracts to help us close the budget gap, to cap pensions and so forth. It's really about, and I am proud of the fact that I'm supported by folks who've been on the other side of issues that we pressed forward. That's a kind of change in politics that we tried to bring.
Let me take a very quick interlude here. Quick answers, maybe even monosyllabic.
I'm sort of waiting for that.
What's the single most important virtue in a human being?
Compassion.
Loyalty.
Patience.
Patience.
Generosity.
Most overrated virtue?
Competition.
John?
Loyalty.
I don't think there is an overrated virtue. I can't think of one. I think we need more virtues in this world.
You're saying you have the most important virtue is loyalty, and you say the most overrated is
Pride, if it's a virtue.
That's kind of, well, no, that's, I wish I could have, I thought of that one, but I didn't think of it as a virtue.
The last thing you splurged on?
The last thing I splurged on?
Yeah.
Dinner with my wife.
I hope it was a good one.
Same here, dinner with my wife.
What'd you spend?
About $60.
Big time.
I'm interviewing for a job, Charlie, okay?
Yeah, okay. With tip? Go ahead.
I'd have to say the same.
The same? These guys are all fun. How about you? You can't say dinner with your wife, so that'd be different.
I say dinner for my husband, except that he footed the bill.
The book that's on your bedside table?
Right now, Lincoln, by Donald.
On your bedside table?
Big Citizen, I think it is, by Alan Casey. It's a new book.
I don't remember the name of the book, but it's basically a compendium of Medal of Honor winners and their stories. Congressional Medal of Honor, recipients and their stories.
I don't actually have a book on my...
What's on your Kindle?
No.
You don't have one? And your favorite movie actor, the person you'd go see, even if the movie was lousy?
I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say that I would go to any movie that Pixar puts together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you think about it. Tim?
Jack Nicholson. He's always different and interesting.
I gotta be with Charlie on Pixar, but if I have to pick an actor or actress, it would be Halle Berry. Excuse me, Diane, I'm sorry. I think she knows, though.
Yeah, I'm fairly indiscriminate on movies. You can
Enough of
do
that.
anything.
Let me talk about urban.
Enough of that.
We go back to this. It's fun.
Let me talk about urban issues. Charlie Baker, I haven't heard much from you on urban issues. What assurances would you give to this state that you would be governor of all the people?
I've spent a lot of time in what I call the gateway communities in Massachusetts. Cities that have unemployment that's above the statewide average, personal income that's below the statewide average, and housing values that are below the statewide average. And the reason I've spent a lot of time in those communities is they are in many cases some of our most distressed communities for which there's been no strategy, explicit strategy for a long time in terms of how to make them better. And I talked to a lot of the local officials in those communities, and one of the things I've concluded is that we spend a lot of money in these communities. They're 15% of the population, they're 35% of state spending, but there's not an explicit strategy. I've said to a number of them, I said, what I want to do is literally write up a work plan that includes reciprocal responsibilities between you at the local level and your community and us at the state level on what we are going to mutually agree to do to create jobs and create economic opportunity and get folks in your community back to work. And the two biggest issues that come up, Charlie, when you talk to folks in these communities, you got to do something about public safety. $700 million in local aid cuts over the past 4 years has hurt them tremendously with regard to that. And you got to make sure that not just that their school systems are chasing the brass ring, but that
the keep urging cutting taxes, isn't that going to cut right into what you're talking about?
Look, I think state government needs to clean up its act and spend less on state government. But I also believe that because some of the tough decisions that should have been made over the course of the past few years weren't made, we have been cutting, as a state, local aid, and that has dramatically affected these communities almost more than others. And the other thing I'd say, Charlie, some of these places have some really significant opportunities that I don't think we've been defending. I don't
Springfield,
think you're talking
Holyoke,
people in New Bedford. I think we should be unbelievably aggressive in defending the fishing industry in New Bedford.
Governor, let me turn to you. This has been a violent summer in Boston.
what the fuck?
51 people killed. The last person I think was killed with an AK-47.
That's right.
And there were 4 people last month killed in Mattapan. One was a 2-year-old child.
That's right.
4 years ago, you pledged to put 1,000 new police officers on the street.
Right.
Didn't happen.
Right.
Why'd you back off that?
Because we had a global economic collapse. And we've had
It's
to
more
cut.
important than public safety.
Well, there have been cuts across the board. Everything has been touched. We've had a accumulated budget gap of $13 billion. We've had to close, and frankly, I did not feel that I could spare particular promises or programs that I had committed to. I felt like everything had to be touched, and this is a very, very painful.
Police Association announced there's 500 to 1,000 fewer police on the street compared to 2006.
Well,
That's a good thing, but
I will say that
he's upset about it.
stimulus, we have been able to invest in public safety in all communities and retain many public safety officials, and I respect their work. But I will say that I don't think that the issue is all about police on the street. I do very much believe in community policing as a strategy. I think it has it's worked. This is the idea of police being out of their cars and walking and riding bikes and building relationships with communities. But there's something else going on right now. Something that frankly even goes beyond the profound level of unemployment. It's a hopelessness and a despair out there. And I think there are things that we as adults have to do apart from our role as
I don't know who's hopeless.
to show a real interest in young people, and that's something that I've been trying to encourage by being out in all those communities you mentioned.
Tim Cahill, what would you do about gun violence? To what extent would you try to limit the number of guns on the street?
Well, I think the key to limiting violence, overall gun or any other kind of violence, is putting more police on the street. I think
Fool!
to get back to the community policing that has certainly been hurt over the last 4 years because there are less police on the street. There's no new state police
Gun control not
academy.
an issue for you?
No, I don't think that gun control is the primary issue.
We have the most police
And I'm the only
per
one in
capita.
this group here that lives in a city, that understands and raised a family in a city. So we understand that it's got to be, public safety's got to be important. Education has to be important. If we're going to turn our cities around, we've got to have a strategy, but we also have to have people who have grown up in the city and still live in the city and worked in that city for 15 years as a local official. You have to tie the whole thing together. It can't just be one solution. Educating our kids to show them that it isn't hopeless. Just because they come from a bad neighborhood or they come from a poor part of the city, like I did, doesn't mean that you have to turn to a gun or a crime to make money. You go to work, but you got to create that opportunity. We've let the city of Lawrence go to hell. We've let the city of Lawrence go down. It is becoming a basket case right now because we have not stepped in. This government did not step in with some good financial proposals to try to help them. And the city is just falling apart, and it will continue to fall apart if something is not done soon.
Charlie Baker, take that question to you. What would you do about gun violence? To what extent would you try to limit guns on the streets?
I agree with Tim. I don't think the big issue is fundamentally about guns. I think the fundamental
You
issue
don't think
is,
there's too many guns on this?
I think the fundamental issue is about well, most of the guns that get used in the crimes you're talking about aren't registered and aren't licensed in the first place.
Should they be?
Well, they're not. I mean, they're all part
right,
of the
they're
big
not.
underground economy. But I think the big
We
issue,
license automobiles, why don't we license guns?
let's talk solutions for a minute here.
We license automobiles, why don't we license guns?
We license owners and